So the first one that I've got here is, what's the story behind your band name? I already know that you started off as Danger Bird, and you decided to change it to a better name when your producer made a crack about Neil Young tribute bands. I did see that in an interview before. But what exactly made you guys decide on the name Fortune Child specifically?
Well, we the name Danger Bird was kind of, that was going to have to be changed because because our producer, said, look, it's going to be a problem. And, there's a lot of Neil Young cover bands called Danger Bird. So we just, we bounced back a couple names, back and forth for probably about a month. Yeah. And then the name Fortune Child kind of, I thought about that one because there's some hidden meanings in there, but really, it's just a universal, positive name, something uplifting.
Yeah, I could definitely agree with that for sure.
Yeah, because the music is so raw, so, it's a lot of really hard rock and roll stuff, so the oxymoron with the name, kind of just, it's a cool thing.
Yeah, it's a nice contrast for sure.
Exactly, yeah.
Alrighty. Now, I know you guys have listed bands like Led Zeppelin, Skynyrd, Alice in Chains, and Black Crowes as influences. What are a few more that were super important that kind of made each of you kind of go, like, you knew what you wanted, you knew that this was what you wanted to do for the rest of your life? Who kind of sparked that for you guys?
Yeah, there's a lot of things. I think we kind of have, I would say, a mix of old vintage stuff, like the bands that you mentioned, with kind of mixed with some more modern stuff that we grew up with. And for me, it was kind of, in addition to those old bands, it was kind of the early 2000s rock, like Audio Slave and Rage Against the Machine and like Tool and stuff like that. The Mars Volta was a big one for me. So, yeah, Mel too. So it was kind of, I think this was all part of our desire to kind of blend those two sounds, like the old rock with more of the 2000s sound.
Yeah, I definitely think it works too. You guys definitely have a unique sound. When I was listening through the album, I couldn't really call it one thing, which is pretty nice. It's actually pretty cool.
Oh, it's a huge compliment. Yeah, we did hear that.
Awesome. So what kinds of other instruments or musical training do you guys have, if any? I know sometimes, like, a lot of rock musicians will come from, like, classical or something weird like that.
I think three of us, well, me less than the other two. This is Christian, by the way. Jazz backgrounds a little bit. I know, obviously, John and Mel do. I played in the jazz band in high school. I started on drums. Drums is like my first instrument, so I migrated from drums to guitar, and then I sang my whole life. And this was the first band that actually was like a front man, without an instrument. So that was kind of a little bit of a leap and, kind of a learning curve for me. But I'm really enjoying it. And it definitely, I think a lot of the background does help. Like even the jazz background, there's a lot of cool nuances and kind of things you can pull out of all the genres of music to kind of create what we're doing right now. So I think that's kind of what is driving the whole train.
Yeah, I sometimes think people, like, even musicians who've been doing it for a while, really underestimate what having more than one genre experience really does to help your understanding of how to write. Because you're not the first person that I've heard that from, for sure.
Yeah, for me, this is John, the bass player. I actually went to college for jazz trumpet, so I made a little bit of a detour, but yeah, I studied classical music and jazz for years in like high school and college, and I still play some of that stuff on gigs, But that whole time, I also had this love for more visceral music and for rock and stuff like that. And so yeah, for me, I've always had those kind of two sides of, some of that music that's more kind of nerdy, like school inspired, but then that doesn't totally do it for me, and I always kind of have to come back to the more just straight up rock and roll. Sometimes that's kind of what lets me get everything out, you know.
Exactly. I can totally agree with that. Alrighty. So I already know that you guys met mostly through networking online. I do know that Christian and John, you guys knew each other like in person already, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
We had been in the previous band together a few years ago, really up until 2020. So it was only about a year after that Christian brought me in for this.
Awesome. Yeah. So since you guys knew each other, but for the most part, it's been networking online. And navigating a new band dynamic is hard enough when there isn't a whole lot of craziness and unusual circumstances like a freaking pandemic going on in the world the last couple of years. What would you guys say have been the biggest challenges or pleasant surprises even that you've discovered through the process?
Oof.
Well, I kind of think in an odd way the pandemic kind of helped us a little bit because everyone was locked down. I was living in Los Angeles at the time, and then I ended up here because LA locked down. But we kind of had this time to get everything together. And I think if it wasn't for the fact that a lot of stuff was shut down, we couldn't have had that time to practice, write all the songs. Because that's how me and Beth met, was because we were both kind of locked down, and we started writing songs, and we found John and Christian. So it kind of was a bit of this quiet time where we could just get together and focus.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've all had a year and a half to just sit and think about everything at this point.
I know.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was odd.
I hate to say it was a good thing, but it kind of it definitely sparked, because for me, John and I were in Kapowski, the band prior to Fortune Child, and that ended right the very first weekend that everything shut down. It was actually St. Patrick's Day. It was literally 2 years ago today, basically. It was right. And we had just released an EP, had an awesome show, and then everything was gone. So we basically just stopped playing in that band. I was just, everybody kind of figured out what they were going to do from there. We weren't really playing music. And then Buddy hit me up in December of last year, or the year before, I guess. And he was like, hey, let's get together. I want to start writing. I've heard you sing before. I think it'd be perfect. Mel and I have all these ideas. So it kind of was the perfect opportunity for at least me at the time. I was itching to be back in a band. And, if I had been in a normal circumstance, how I normally was gigging all the time, I might have been ooh, I don't know. I don't know if I have the time to really dive into something like that. So it really was a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, and that's always nice when you can find some sort of blessing out of something that's so insane, for sure.
Totally.
Alright, and I actually was going to touch on that, Melanie, next about you living in LA before, and you got to work with some really cool people like Slash, Nancy Wilson, Billy Gibbons. Could you give us a comparison? I know it's a little bit hard with stuff being kind of open and closed depending on where you go, but what's a good comparison of your experiences between living in LA and living in Jacksonville? How has each place complemented your lifestyle and your aspirations and dreams there?
Well, the cool thing, LA has a really great rock scene, and I think that a lot of people think rock is dead and rock is dying, but if you go to LA, it's rock scenes all over the place. You can go to any bar on the strip, and there's always a great rock and roll band playing. But the interesting part is, now when you come down south, it's kind of similar, but I think a lot of people don't know about what's going on down here, because you have bands like the Georgia Thunderbolts in Georgia, and then you have the Dirty Roses up in Nashville, so there's also this cool thing down south going on. But as far as a comparison, because, I love living in LA. I thought the music scene was great. It gave you lots of opportunities. If I never went to LA, I probably never would have worked with Billy or Slash or Nancy. So that's a really great thing about Los Angeles. But because of the shutdown, almost a lot of musicians that were in LA slowly started moving to Nashville because everyone was out of work and no one knew what to do. So that's why it started creating this cool other thing that's happening in Nashville, where a lot of rock musicians all went over to Nashville. But both areas are great. I love Los Angeles. I love the mountains, the beach, the ocean. There's so much to do. But I also live it here in Jax, and I never would have met Buddy or John and Christian if I didn't get if the lockdown didn't happen. So we would have not got together. So I'm thankful for living in both places.
Yeah, you definitely touched on something too, because I was about to say, like, have you run into any kind of issues where you haven't met a lot of like-minded or like-genre people to network with while you've been around in the South? But it sounds like it hasn't been as much of a problem as one might think, possibly.
Yeah, no, I think the South is cool because it does kind of venture on that Southern rock, like especially in Jacksonville. So Leonard Skinner and the Allman Brothers are definitely a staple here. But you know, all that music's great. So, and also there's a good jam band scene down south, which is really cool. But as far as like-mindedness, I think you find it in both areas. It's just finding people that like the same music that you do and that you vibe well with. But yeah, for sure, there's definitely this feeling of passion for Skinner and Allman Brothers because they're from here, and you can see it in a lot of people grew up with those guys too. So you feel it when people come to our shows and stuff. It's a very prideful thing. It's a great thing to see too.
That's awesome to hear. Earlier I mentioned your debut album producer, and that's Kevinelson. He's got some real significant credits to his name with like Europe's Final Countdown album, Journey's Frontiers, and Mr. Big Lean Into It. So tell us the story of how you got that collaboration opportunity and your experience together, like working with him.
Yeah, well, this is Buddy, by the way. So we got a demo at a studio called NFS. You know, John Ward hooks us up with. Phenomenal studio. I mean, we got a great sounding demo, you know, and we were just starting to cut our teeth on recording music, you know, and you know, our manager Brandon, just a huge significant role in you know, like our decision making and stuff like that. We just really sat down and talked about, man, we need someone significant. We need just a very, you know, quality man to come in and really help us out. And we reached out to a guy named David Frangione. It's actually the CEO of Maxim Palmada in Bremen. And he just really liked it, you know. I mean, like, it's just a blessing that guy responded to us, you know. Yeah. And so he liked it and sent it right over to Kevin. You know, he's like, hey man, Kevin's gonna call you in a little bit, you know. And I'm like, oh wow, you know, we meet up with him, you know, and talk about what we're going for and stuff. And we surely did, like a week later. And he is just the most down to earth guy, super musical, super, you know, inspirational. Someone that you just want like on your side as far as music, because he's just always gonna see you. His mindset is very like, he thinks about the consumer. I mean, like, he thinks about like what you're just your average listener wants, which is something that's, you know, beautiful. I mean, like, that's what he's done his whole career. You know, he's been living off that, and his track record is just amazing. He's got so much history. You know, like, he was on the Skinner plane crash, survived that, and so, you know, just the knowledge and the history and just the vibe of him, you know, just super, you know, inspirational. You know, like, if you're like a musician and you want to, you know, just really get inspired, you know, like Kevinelson is the guy that really has done it all, you know, as far as music. So we're just blessed that he likes us, you know, he likes the band. You know, he did the album. We mixed it at David Frangione's place down in South Florida. And those guys are on our team, you know, so it's a miracle.
Yeah, that sounds great. Now you can talk to us also about the songwriting and recording process that you guys have, since every band does it a little bit differently. You can be as nerdy as you want if there's like certain scales or arrangements that you have like go-tos for when you're just kind of messing around with the instruments. If you have like certain lyrical themes you like to play with, does anybody take charge? Do y'all do everything equally?
Yeah, it starts, basically the process is as such. We show up to practice. Buddy has like 4 riffs. Buddy is a riff factory. Yes, he is the riff factory. And so Mel and Buddy will essentially have the drums and guitar mapped out. So we all get together and it's like, okay, let's check this one out. Let's play one, play another one, play another one. And we'll kind of pick, okay, we actually like that one the best. And then from there, John steps in. They start throwing down bass lines. And for me, if I usually, depending on whichever one we hear and we like, I'll just have them play it over and over and over again. And I write the lyrics on spot. I'm not much of like a at home, like, I don't know, like journal kind of guy. Like I like to hear it and let that influence me, like however my day is going, whatever's going on outside or inside the jam room, you know, like that's kind of what helps me come up with lyrical content. Because I like the fact that it's real and it's right at that moment. It's in the moment and it captures something very real to me. Lyrically and just musically, I think it really makes for a cool combo. So that's basically the the writing process for us, and it happens relatively quickly, a lot faster than any other band I've been in, which is really neat. So we've just been pumping out songs. I mean, we just recorded that, we released the album, recorded a while ago, but we're already on our way to another one, and we haven't even touched or scratched the surface of getting into the studio or anything yet. So it's pretty neat. It's definitely special. It's kind of lightning in a bottle situation. So we're just kind of, trying not to mess it up. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So we're just going to continue on this path.
Absolutely. And sometimes sometimes it's the best way to be, honestly, to just kind of go on a whim like that and just kind of go with it, because when you start getting too into your own head, that's when things start going all crappy.
Right. Totally.
For lack of a better word, crappy. All right. So you have to describe your band to someone discovering you in just 5 words. What would your response be to that?
I would usually call it like vintage modern, or modern classic rock. 5 hard hitting modern classic rock.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah. Which is very authentic. There's just such an authenticity, in the band that, it's just, everyone providing their delivery off the stage, into the crowd, into the people, it's just super dynamic. I mean, as a unit, it's really just dynamic. It's just super real,
Yeah, super real. That's always how I think.
If you were to go to a show in the 70s or something like that, and these bands, it got started, playing through the showmans on stage, and they had to crank their amps, to play to 60,000 people. I mean, you think about the Cream or Zeppelin. I mean, those bands really just had to deliver everything physically, into the audience, there was this whole movement, and that's kind of what you get. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the level of confidence that we have in each other is amazing. It's just a beautiful thing to experience that with other players. So it's just a very real.
Good description, yeah. All right, and you get to go out on a dream run with 3 other modern rock bands who are also keeping the rock torch alive. Who would you bring with you and why? No oldies.
No oldies.
Yeah. I got a wild card that I'm gonna wait. But who wants to do it?
No, you wanna go?
So it has to be
a modern, it's new wave of pop.
Does this count as modern?
No.
Heck, what? I think it counts, sort of. We're still torn.
I mean, they're not on stage.
I mean, I would have to say Dirty Honey. Dirty Honey.
Yeah, I'm good with it.
Dirty Honey.
I like Rival Sons a lot.
Rival Sons is
Yeah, I think both of those are good. Greta would be cool for the draw. Greta would be cool because we get to play like arenas. But
those kids have so much just great stuff. I mean, I just really, just appreciate everything they've done.
They kind of broke it open.
Exactly. Right. Yeah, they broke it open, and all these bands just started flooding in. Just. I mean, there's just some amazing bands out there. Joyous Wolf. Wolf Mother is actually a badass band.
Yeah, I wish they would keep doing so.
And they had that Sabbath. I mean, like a lot of these bands, like in this kind of new wave market of rock. So, I mean, it is a throwback. And sort of like nowadays, it's like if anything's vintage, it's like automatically considered cool, which is a dream for me, right?
Oh,
so
yeah.
you know what I'm saying? So it's just so cool. Like each band has. I mean, like we played down in Orlando with a band called Cinema Stereo, and Rocks Revolt.
Yeah.
And just some amazing vibes as a band. And just to see these people, coming together, enjoying, kind of like a vintage rock feel. I mean, like that. And there really is a market. Dirty Honey's on top, Red Van Fleet's on top. Joyous Wolf. There's another band called Goodbye June that Blacktop Mode is a fantastic rock band. I mean, this whole scene is just really, really well.
Yeah. Funny enough, I did see Goodbye June before. I saw them play with Greta like 5 years ago almost.
Really? Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a very small thing, and the guy did not lie when we were at that show and say, like, this is the last time you're going to see Greta Van Fleet in a place this small. He was not kidding.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Alrighty. And I was going to ask if there's anything cool coming up music-wise, but it does sound like you guys are working towards that second album, but not quite there yet. So we'll just go with
that's on the back burner for sure. What we're doing now is just focusing on shows. We've got one this weekend. We actually won a slot through Planet Radio and iHeart Radio to play. It's called the Great Atlantic Southern Rock Revival. And that's happening in Jacksonville on the 19th. And the Georgia Thunderbolts are headlining. We've been lucky enough to kind of be in touch with those guys. They are big fans of our music, which is really, really cool. Yeah. So they are really excited to play a show with us, and we're definitely very excited to play with them. And that's the 19th on Saturday. And then we've got, I think, 4 shows coming up in April happening in Jacksonville. We've got one in Orlando, one in Gainesville, another one could be probably North Florida, might be in Georgia too. So we're kind of working some things out, but definitely just trying to get out there and break in new crowds. Because I mean, I think that's where we do best. The transparency and the kind of authenticity of this band is what really keeps the wheels turning. So I think that when we get in front of people, it's awesome. We do great with followers after that. We sell a lot of merch. So I think that we're just kind of trying to roll that route, see how it goes.
Yeah, I think we're kind of hoping to do some touring later over the course of this year, and dates aren't solidified yet, but that's kind of our goal for the second half of the year, is to be on the road as much as we can.
Hey, look, that's pretty much the smartest way to be with a band anymore, is to just be constantly gigging at this point.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
All right, so it looks like we just got a few more minutes left here. Just go ahead and promote yourself before we go. Tell everybody where they can find you to listen to your music, and just say hey.
Check us out on Spotify, Apple Music, any of the digital streaming platforms. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Fortune Child Music is where you can find all of that. Definitely give us a follow, a like, a subscribe on YouTube. We've got a music video out for Don't Shoot Me Down. Incredible video we shot in the space that we write all of our music in, which is really, really cool. Definitely check that out on YouTube. And yeah, definitely just try and get those follows up and get people on the train. That's all we're trying to do.
There's a lot to deliver with this band live,
All right, so that was the last one that I had. Thank you so much for taking the time out, guys. I really appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you so much.
Yep, hopefully I will talk to you guys soon when number 2 rolls around.
Absolutely.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Yep, you guys have a good night now.
All right, you too.
Take care.
You too. Bye.